Buffalo Bills running back Ray Davis looked awesome on Monday Night Football. Should James Cook be concerned? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. On today's show, we're going to talk about this Jets offense finally looking somewhat competent, some waiver wire ads that you need to make over the next couple of days. But Kate, let's start with the Bills. They get a win over the Jets, 23-20. No James Cook in this game, but it doesn't matter because Ray Davis has a monster performance.
Ray Davis looked absolutely incredible as a rookie. Didn't know what to expect. Now, I'm going to say I was skeptical of Ray Davis from a dynasty standpoint. I enjoyed watching him play college ball for sure. But he comes into the league at 24 years old and is going to be 25 by the end of his rookie season, which, going to be honest, kind of scares me. He's got a lot of miles on the tires here from his college seasons. Played at Temple, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and he got plenty of work. So that's kind of the biggest scare point of me from a long-term perspective. But man, this dude runs like he is trying to fight his way out of a evil corn maze every single time he touches the ball. I don't know what the I'm trying to come up with something Halloween-y, but yeah. He's not even fighting his way out of a corn maze. He's just bulldozing through it. How about that?
I love his running style, right? He is physical. He's tough. And I think in a lot of ways, James Cook is the better athlete. He's the better player. But I do wonder if Ray Davis's style is going to make more sense for the Bills when we get to the colder months, right? It starts to snow and rain up there in Buffalo. Kate, I want to tell you a little story. A story from 1925. Okay, there was a Yankees game that was going on in 1925, and their first baseman Wally Pipp had a little bit of a headache going into the game, so he decided not to play. That day, his replacement was a 21-year-old Lou Gehrig who came in and had 3 hits and helped the Yankees win a game. And Lou Gehrig ended up being the starter for the rest of his career at first base, and became one of the greatest baseball players of all time. So a lot of times you'll hear this phrase be called, say Wally Pipped. Will this player be Wally Pipped? I think there's a chance that Ray Davis is that next player that could maybe move James Cook, not to the bench, but maybe where we see this being more of a 50-50 backfield.
Well, I'm going to be honest, never knew the origin of that phrase.
There you go. So I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the learning lesson today. I think this could be an opportunity for them to put James Cook in more advantageous situations, right? Let Ray Davis face some stacked boxes up the middle. Some of the running lanes also, shout out to the Bills offensive line. Some of the running lanes that they cleared, it was absolutely incredible. There was so much room. And I'm not discrediting Ray Davis and what he did on the ground, but it was like a symphony of run game on Monday Night Football here. And Ray Davis, he does fit more of that mold of a guy that's going to, be kind of that bowling ball guy up the middle. Yep. He's 5'8", 220 pounds. Boy is thick. He can take some punches.
In a good way. Yes.
Yeah, in a good way. No, he has a lot of muscle mass to him. He's just a little bit more dense, right? And that can be more advantageous for a role in the goal line situations, in short yardage situations, where maybe he has a little bit more of that power back mentality than James Cook, who's more of a finesse speed, athleticism. Like
Mhm.
that's more of James Cook's game. So like maybe there's a way that these two can kind of live harmoniously. The biggest question is what would that do for Josh Allen's fantasy value, or does it not even matter
I
because
don't think it
Josh Allen
matters.
is Josh Allen?
Josh Allen's going to get his. I do think it might have some impacts on James Cook, and it could be positive, right? Because I look at James Cook as somebody that you don't want to get 23, 24 touches in a game. I think he's best when he's around the 17, 18 mark, right? You keep him fresh, you keep him explosive. But I
He's
just
also on the smaller side, so like
exactly. And
yeah.
I'm already dealing with an injury, right? And we want to see him healthy when we get to the postseason. I just don't know if you're Joe Brady and the Bills, if you watch Ray Davis, how you can put him back on the bench next week when James Cook comes back into the lineup, right? Like Ray Davis looked so good in his touches, 20 carries for 97 yards, 3 receptions for 55 yards, also had a touchdown that was taken off the board due to a legal formation penalty. Like he played awesome. I do think there is a chance moving forward that this is at least a split backfield because Ray Davis is really good. Kate, I want to tell you, we had a podcast you and I did on February 15th as we were starting to get familiar with some of these players. And after that podcast, we tweeted, why can't Kentucky running back Ray Davis be Kyron Williams in the NFL, a day 3 back that becomes a good to great starter on a really good offense by year 2? I kind of stand by that. Like, why couldn't this be Ray Davis's backfield in 2025? We saw this happen with Kyron, right? Like Kyron was a late round pick. Cam Akers was the highly drafted athlete. But it became pretty clear that Kyron Williams is just the better fit.
All great points. Now, with that, let's talk about Ray Davis's dynasty value then, because obviously, I think now is not the time to buy Ray Davis. I think you need to get James Cook back in the lineup,
Yep.
have him, be taking the bulk of these touches here. But I still think, regardless of James Cook's, role, if he's the lead back, I still think there's a very finite place for Ray Davis in this offense. Even if it's like around the goal line, right? Like we saw Latavius Murray get touches in this backfield. Like we have seen a whole slew of random bulky running backs get some of these very valuable touches inside the goal line, inside inside the 10, inside the 20, just because they know that James Cook is not the
Yeah.
guy that you want up against the stack boxes. So I think what you have to do is you have to wait until James Cook comes back,
Which will
wait
likely be
until the
this
hype
week.
dies down, and then what do you pay for him? Right now, being valued in the month of October as RB45. Some names going around him: Tyrone Tracy,
Hmm.
Tank Bigsby, Tyler Algier, all of whom had
Good weeks.
yeah.
All those guys were good players this week. Man, I think I'm valuing him more like in the Chase Brown range, like RB30, RB31, RB32. I think that's probably the most I would pay for right now. But I do wonder, like, what's that going to cost you as a draft pick? Like, would you give up a second round pick for Ray Davis? I probably wouldn't. But a third round pick, I think I would.
I think third round pick feels pretty fair at this point. Let's look at some other running backs in that range. Like I think Chuba Hubbard might be an interesting kind of comp in terms of value because
Sure.
he's this guy that you're expecting to be a backup running back. Not a guy that is necessarily going to win you any weeks, but based on his play, you might be able to slot him in. I will say the value for Chuba Hubbard in some recent trades, and maybe that's kind of inflated because of his recent production on the ground. But latest Dynasty trade we have for Chuba Hubbard is for a second round pick. One trade just before that, Chuba Hubbard for a second round pick and Ronnie Rivers. Like, feels like the value is actually probably around a second round pick. So if it's a late second, I still probably feel kind of
It's probably too
iffy
much
about
for right
it.
now
Yeah,
because James Cook still has 1 year left on his deal. Like if
yeah.
James Cook was going into the final year of his contract, I think that's where it makes it a little easier to make the move. But we'll see. Let's watch how this thing plays out. But I think the big takeaway here is Ray Davis looked awesome. He was the clear-cut starter in this game. It wasn't Ty Johnson. It wasn't Frank Gore Jr. Like, they leaned on Ray Davis. And I got to believe now, and Kate, just to be clear, this isn't like Ray Davis this is his first time playing. You look at the game logs, he didn't record a carry against Houston, but 7 carries against Baltimore, 7 carries against Jacksonville, 9 carries against Miami. Like, he was already part of the game plan. But with him looking so good against the Jets, I do wonder if those 7 to 9 carries now go up to like 10 or 11.
Yeah, I think all of those very fair points. And Ray Davis might just be kind of this fixture that, like, man, you can slot him into your flex if you need a fill-in starter, or if you need a flex fill-in. And then if there is an injury to James Cook and he gets the role, you've probably got a top 15 back.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the Jets, because Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall both had really good performances on Monday Night Football. Let's break down the New York side of things next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Maybe you want to go bet on this Thursday night football game. It's Broncos at Saints. Sean Payton returning home against Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler, 2 rookie quarterbacks. It's going to be probably a pretty ugly game, but go bet on the spread. Go bet on the point total. I don't envision a lot of points being scored in that game. I think the total right now, 37.5 on FanDuel.com right now. Go check out all of the lines and odds available. That is FanDuel.com. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and does not return for the second, PrizePicks keeps your lineup alive. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the PrizePicks app right now. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Okay, let's talk about the Jets. They didn't get the win in this one, but the offense did look functional against the Buffalo Bills. They only scored 20 points, and I know 7 of those came on a Hail Mary, but they missed 2 short field goals. Greg Zuerlein did not have a good day. They had 393 yards of offense, which is encouraging. What was your biggest takeaway from this offensive performance by the Jets?
Allen Lazard, baby. Allen Lazard, I know we can talk about it. Yeah, I know you're probably itching to talk about Garrett Wilson, the fact that he's coming on, and yeah, he's, you know what? He's doing everything that we wanted him to do as a top 6 dynasty wide receiver. That was what he was born to do. Okay. Although I gotta say, Marcus just checked the latest batch of Dynasty ADP. Garrett Wilson all the way down to wide receiver 16. Holy smokes.
But that makes sense though, because
got off to a slow start.
He's gotten off to a slow start. The production isn't there. Plus, there's just a lot of uncertainty at quarterback, right? Like Aaron Rodgers is a free agent after this year. He's not playing particularly well, where a lot of those other receivers ahead of him just have much more established offenses and quarterback situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair call out, but I still want to talk about Allen Lazard, who, like, as long as Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback, I think Allen Lazard is probably like a must flex every single week. Is that fair to say? Because I'm looking at what he's done through the first, 6 weeks here, and Allen Lazard just doesn't seem to be going away. You know why? Because he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. And you know what's really going to seal that role going forward? A game-losing interception from Mike Williams, who may never see touch the ground ever again on a field that Aaron Rodgers shares. Allen Lazard now has a touchdown in 4 of 6 games this year. Finally had that big boom, yardage total. Like his yardage totals haven't been fantastic this year, but what you're seeing is in these very critical situations, there was even a throw. They were somewhere around midfield, and Aaron Rodgers just threads the needle into the tiniest little pocket that I've ever seen. And Allen Lazard comes down with the catch. And I thought I had to watch it 3 times before I realized, like, oh my God, he actually caught that. And you know what? Those are the kind of plays that are going to earn him more plays. And Aaron Rodgers is that finicky uncle who wants things exactly so. Like, he cannot have wrinkles in what he wants to accomplish. And Allen Lazard is one of those guys that makes sure that the wrinkles stay away.
You beat me down to the point of I'm just accepting that you're right here on Allen Lazard. Like, I just give up. You're right. Allen Lazard is going to be a thing this year. I do want to mention Garrett Wilson, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. He also had another red zone target where he caught the ball, but it got jarred away. So could have had 2 touchdowns in this game. This is back-to-back weeks of solid performances from Garrett Wilson. I don't want to spend too much time on him. I do want to talk about Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. This has been a split backfield for the last couple of weeks. Not the case this week. 18 for 113 for Breece Hall. 3 carries for 8 yards for Braylon Allen. I do want to mention that Braylon Allen had a touchdown taken off the board due to a Tyron Smith penalty. Breece Hall, 5 for 56 in the receiving game. Braylon Allen, 0-0 on 2 targets. So it does feel like we're getting back to Breece Hall being the workhorse back. Maybe I overreacted the last couple of weeks, but it's still the lack of touchdowns that are concerning for me. Like, you're getting the yards, but he has, 2 touchdowns through 6 games this year. Not ideal.
Yeah, and I think the one play that kind of had me wondering, like, how's Breece Hall? Like, is Breece Hall good? That play that very, very nearly should have been a touchdown. Just absolutely broke one off right down the sideline. Was a 42-yard run, I believe, and didn't outrun the defender. And
no, it was weird. Like, you could tell that his athleticism isn't quite back yet.
No, and it just kind of made me wonder, like, is he 100%? Because we know what Breece Hall can do, and we know how big and fast he is. Explosive is the element of his game that makes him so special. So to see him not close out that run, I just kind of had to wonder, like, is this a situation where, maybe he's not fully healthy? Because he took it all the way down to the 3-yard line. He was this close, but just couldn't eke out that one extra gear of speed that we typically see of Breece Hall.
And it's funny, Joe Buck on the call said, Breece Hall gone. And then he was tackled at 3. I had the same thought. Like, 2 years ago, I remember Breece Hall outrunning all the Packers defensive backs in Green Bay for like a 75-yard touchdown. Breece Hall didn't do it in this game. And it ended up being really costly because not only did he not score a touchdown, the Jets actually missed the field goal on that drive as well. So they got 0 points out of that drive. Ultimately ended up being the difference in the game. I thought he looked better and more explosive this week, but I think that, like, the 2022 version of Breece Hall, where he's just the best athlete in the field, I don't know if we're ever getting that back.
Okay. That makes me sad. I don't want to, I'm trying not to overreact. Again, I'm just kind of wondering, like, I'm not saying he's lost the juice, the magic, but I do wonder, is there a chance that he's just not 100% healthy? On the Braylon Allen note, we know that he's incredibly talented, one of the most valuable backup running backs in, all of football, probably all of fantasy football. But Braylon Allen, I do think like the last 2 weeks hasn't made a great case for an increased workload. Has been relatively inefficient. I gotta say, this might be I don't know if now's the time to sell, but I'm looking at the Dynasty startup ADP that we just got for the month of October. Do you have any idea where Braylon Allen was drafted in this group of Dynasty startup ADP?
Oh, is he a top 25 running back now?
He is.
I figured. How high up?
23. Oh no. I don't know.
It's pretty high. It's pretty high.
It's really high.
I don't think I can go that high.
Playing behind Breece Hall. Come on.
Yeah,
No, we're not paying that. And if you can get RB23 prices for Braylon Allen, like some guys going behind him, Trey Benson, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, like I would take any of those guys over Braylon Allen because I just know Trey Benson, I think, has a higher ceiling because he is the clearest pathway to an RB1 workload out of that bunch. But Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, even DeAndre Swift, who like has, come on a bit as of late. Like I'll take all those guys who I at least know are going to see the field or have a more immediate pathway to seeing the field.
All right, Kate, let's talk about your waiver wires going into week 7. Is there anybody worth spending on? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. I absolutely love Gametime. It's the only ticketing app that I use when I want to go watch my favorite sports or live events. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. One of the things I love the most about Gametime is you can get a panoramic view of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what it's going to look like. I like sitting in the end zone, but I don't like it when the goalposts are in my way, so I kind of like to be off to the side just a little bit. Gametime is going to make sure that you get the exact seats that you want. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk, available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, Kate, waiver wire week 7. Who we picking up?
All right, I'm going to kick us off with a name that I don't know probably honestly is available on most waiver wires here in Dynasty leagues. Let's talk about Bub Means, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, who came on, had his little mini breakout game here in week 6. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 45 receiving yards, did nab the touchdown, but clearly is a fixture of Spencer Rattler's passing game. Was targeted on 23.5% of his routes in week 6. Had a passer rating of 117.2 when targeted. And Marcus, I think there's a great chance that he could be in for the wide receiver 2 role in this offense. You have Chris Olave, who, dealing with a concussion. This is his, I believe, second documented concussion here in the NFL. You have Rashid Shaheed, who's dealing with a knee injury. Reports indicated on Monday that it seems to be a concerning knee injury, TBD on what that means. But Bub Means is the backup wide receiver for this offense. And guess what? He's playing with the backup quarterback. And we see this all the time. When the backup quarterback comes in, they go to their familiar targets. And Bub Means, I think, is a familiar target for Spencer Rattler in this offense. I love the idea of grabbing Bub Means. He's 6'1", 210 pounds, has big hands. He can be explosive. It can be a relatively smooth route runner that you wouldn't maybe guess from the draft capital here, but I think Bub Means could be a huge value that you could probably slot right into your flex here right in week 7.
I want to ask you about Sean Tucker, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back, on ESPN leagues. I know it's not the best way for dynasty leagues, but was only rostered in 1% of leagues going into last week. 14 carries for 136 yards, 3 receptions for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns. Is he somebody that's worth spending a lot of your fab budget on?
I'm going to be honest. I'm probably not going to get a lot of Sean Tucker here in my fab lineups. And that's only because I do think people are going to go all in. But what I want to say is that like I liked the player coming out of Syracuse. What I think is really interesting too, there was a clip that came out of head coach Todd Bowles where they said, like, did Sean Tucker earn a role in this offense moving forward? It was his first real shot, real opportunity, and he took full advantage of every single bit of that opportunity. And Todd Bowles says he might have created a 3-headed monster in this backfield. That's great. But I'm going to say it also terrifies me to my very core because admitting a head coach just actively admitting that he might be in for a 3-headed monster might just be the thing that depletes all of their fantasy value, which again, when Rachaad White comes back, do I think he's earned the RB1 role? No, I think either of these guys could probably fill that role a little bit better. Bucky Irving probably going to be that guy, but I still think Rachaad White's going to be involved. So I'm just hesitant to go all in on my fab here.
I'm the same way. I like Sean Tucker, but this is an offense that's probably going to use multiple backs every week. And picking which 2 you think are going to perform well that week is really difficult. We also know that Tampa Bay will just get into these games where they'll let Baker throw the ball 55 times, and there's just not going to be a lot of opportunities on the ground. So I'm probably staying away. I mean, obviously, I'll throw a couple bucks there just to see if I can get him, but we know somebody's going to spend 65 to 80% of their remaining fab budget on Sean Tucker. Probably not for me, Kate.
Probably not for me. Another name I want to throw out there, again, just with the injuries there in New Orleans, Juwan Johnson, tight end, caught all 3 of his targets, 48 receiving yards. Didn't have a touchdown, but again, just I thought looked pretty good. I think any of these tight ends, Foster Moreau only had 2 targets, 54 receiving yards, but I just want to again, point an arrow at this New Orleans Saints offense who's dealing with injury right now and has a backup quarterback that has gotten some reps with these guys further down the depth chart.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we are going to have Matt Williamson here to answer your Twitter questions. So make sure that you send them into us at Marcus_Mosier, at Kate Majuk. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. And again, tomorrow, Matt Williamson, we'll see you here.